fellow movie crusaders, and welcome to another episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name is Sean Waskrug, and I'm here to review Annabelle Comes Home. Now, for me personally, I have never seen the first two Annabelles. They just didn't really appeal to me. I did hear good things about Annabelle Creations, but I never actually did go out and see it. But I love The Conjuring. I love Conjuring 1. I thought The Conjuring 2 was a solid sequel. It wasn't quite as good as the first Conjuring. But I really like that franchise, and what made me want to go see Annabelle Comes Home is because this is a Warrens-centric film. Now, yes, Ed and Louise Warren, they're not in this movie the entire time. They're in it kind of a little bit in the beginning, a little bit in the end. The story actually revolves more around the daughter, Judy Warren. So because of that, and because it did revolve around the Warrens and Annabelle reacting with them, I definitely wanted to go and check this one out, because it kind of felt like a Conjuring 2.0, with Conjuring 3 coming out next year. So that's kind of why I went to check this one out, and let's see how it did. The events of the events of Annabelle Comes Home basically takes place with the Warrens basically kind of getting a hold of Annabelle for the very first time. The movie literally opens up with Lorraine and Ed basically going to wherever place they did to first meet Annabelle and taking her home and then putting her in her glass case that we've seen her in previous films. And then basically what happens is they're going somewhere overnight, so they hire a babysitter who's Mary Ellen, who's played by Madison Iseman. Maybe people might know her from Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, or the latest Goosebumps film. But she's babysitting them, and then in the course of the night, one of her friends comes over, Daniela, played by Katie Sarif, relatively new in terms of films, but she's on a lot of TV. But she basically goes into the Warrens' locked room with all the evil possessions and stuff like that, and Annabelle, and opens, pretty much touches and opens everything. Incredibly stupid. And then, of course, it is a night full of horror and terror, as the entire house, for the most part, is haunted. And with Judy, played by the phenomenal McKenna Grace, who has probably seen her everywhere, because she pops up everywhere, but mostly House of Haunted Hill. It's up to Judy to kind of get Mary Ellen and Daniela to kind of work together as a team to stop Annabelle. Not only to stay alive, but to try to do everything before the Warrens come back home in the morning. So that's kind of the general plot for Annabelle Comes Home. Now, excuse me. Let's see what works with Annabelle Comes Home. With Annabelle Comes Home, there's a lot of good in this movie. I actually really quite enjoyed it for the most part. I didn't enjoy it as much as Child's Play, for instance, if we're going by recent horrors, or Brightburn. But it was still a very enjoyable film for the most part. The problems, we'll get to the problems, but what works is the cast of the three girls. McKenna Grace as Judy Warren, like I said, she's a fantastic actress. Such a young actress. I can't wait. Anything she's in, I immediately get excited about. I loved her in House of Haunted Hill, and she's popped up on like Fuller House, Young Sheldon. She was a fantastic actress in Gifted with Chris Evans. This young actress is keep an eye out for her, because she just keeps knocking it out of the park in every role she's in, and she does no different here. She is what drives this film. She's what makes the film work overall, and she's the central character that without her everything falls apart. Nothing against Madison Iseman as Mary Ellen or Katie Sarif as Danielle. They're both really good characters as well. But without Judy, this movie does not work, and McKenna Grace does a fantastic job. Going to the other two, Madison Iseman as Mary Ellen, she does that great, villain, or not villain, that's the wrong word, like heroine character that we normally see in horror films, like a Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween-esque type of role. She's the good girl, she does everything right, she's a really good babysitter. But then stuff happens, and instead of screaming and cowering in a corner, she's one of those that's kind of like I'm going to go for it. Now, yes, she's terrified through 95% of the stuff that's happening, but she's that one that she's got to protect the girl, a.k.a. Judy. as much as she can. And instead of, like I said, cowering in a corner screaming, she's very proactive on how do we stop this, let's do this. And I really, really liked her performance overall. It was a really standout, because like I said, the only things I ever saw her in was really Jumanji, but it was a very, very small role for her. So this was kind of her coming out party for me, and I really enjoyed her performance in this, and I can't wait to see more what she does. But Daniela, I mean, her character, when you're watching the movie and you're like, there's all these warnings, there's all these signs, don't go in this room, keep this door locked, don't open this thing, don't touch anything, da-da-da-da-da-da. And she goes and she just does, basically pretends like none of those signs exist, and goes and touches everything. It's an incredibly stupid thing to do. And normally with movies like that, you're just like, how can characters be so stupid? Like, literally, like, you're just asking to die. Like, why are you being this dumb? And you could get very annoyed with characters like that. But with Danielle, there's actually a reason for it. And up until we get that reasoning, yeah, you're just kind of annoyed with this character. Like, this is that character that in a horror film will talk shit about the ghost or the killer or the monster or whatever, and then she dies. And they want you to feel bad for her, but you're kind of rooting for this character to die. But then, all of a sudden, they actually give a motive for why she does the stupid things that she does. And it adds a layer of character to her overall arc, and then you actually care about her character, and you want her character to succeed, and you want her character to survive, mainly, as well, because her reasonings, actually, while stupid, are plausible, and while she is doing a lot of stupid things, you understand why she's doing it to a point. Now, me personally, I would not have done those things, but I also kind of get why she does what she does. So these three characters, or actresses, do a great job throughout the film, and they are what make this film work overall, mainly led by McKenna Grace as Judy. Obviously, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are great in their small roles. If you love the Conjuring franchise, you clearly love those two as the Warrens, and they are great in the few scenes that they're in the film, because it's not their film. It is McKenna Grace's Judy's film. But yes, they're great as well. And then there's also Michael Cimino. He plays Bob, and he's also got a nickname I'm not going to say, but basically everyone seems to know him by this nickname. He's fine. You know, he doesn't do anything particularly special in the film. He's just kind of playing that lovable, I mean, he's not dumb, but I mean, he's goofy in a sense. But he's okay, but this is really a powerhouse performance by these three girls, and they do an incredibly good job. The horrors are, for the most part, are pretty solid too. They do a good job with practical horror. They do a good job with getting those jump scares in. Now with this particular movie, I mean, yes, the jump scares are what's going to drive this film. So if you're not a fan of jump scares, you're not going to like these kinds of films. But then again, if you've seen one Conjuring film, you know that's the bread and butter of these franchises. So if you're not a fan of those, you probably wouldn't be seeing these films in the first place. But the actual ghosts that are in this film, because Annabelle's a beacon to other spirits, so you're going to get a lot of excess stuff happening in it. They're very good. They're awesomely shot, and the heightenedness of the film, especially in the second, third act, when things really, really start to get into the thick of things, is an enjoyable experience overall for haunted house horror fans. Now, what does not work with Annabelle Creations is that the first like 30, 45 minutes is very slow. But because it's basically building up the characters for these three actresses. But for a horror film, you're kind of like, all right, let's hurry up, let's get to some stuff, because I'm starting to get bored, in a sense. So if you're someone who needs, like, immediate horror stuff, I mean, you get some stuff in the beginning with Lorraine and Ed Warren, but as soon as the babysitting thing starts to happen, it does drag down quite a bit, because it's building up character stories for the three actresses, for Judy, Mary Ellen, and Daniela. So it does take till about the second, third act to really jump into the horror thrills of the film. So, I mean, that might not work in certain cases. And then, like I said, there's some very stupid things that these characters do at certain points that can be very annoying for people overall. But like I said, they make sense to a point of why the characters are doing what they're doing. Also, because of them being secluded in the house, like, they don't go outside the house. Everything happens in this one house. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the demons or spirits what they're doing, because there's plenty of times where if they just wanted to kill the girls, they could have done it. Like, boom, done, let's move on. They kind of just play with them for 95% of the film. And for anyone who's watching the movie, it's like, all right, they're going to die, and then they don't. And it's just like, look, if horror films are great because usually there's a kill count and, there's moments where people are going to die and then they die. But in this one, there's so many times where these girls, while great, should have been killed or should have been taken out, and they just kind of don't. And it's just like, what's the motivation or the point of the spirits besides let's just have a fun night of messing with these girls? It's just it can kind of get frustrating in terms of a horror film when they're not trying to actually do anything besides just mess with them. When these are very terrifying spirits and stuff like that, that motivation should be to kill these girls. And it doesn't seem like that ever seems to be a point. And it can be very annoying in a sense because it's just like, oh, well, they're clearly going to die. And then they just kind of just get left alone. It's like, why you had them at this point, why did you just go away? But yeah, and then of course the end point to stop everything just seems very basic. It's like, oh, if that was how you had to do it, then why didn't you guys just do that from the get-go? Kind of thing. It was just a very we got to wrap this up, so let's just come up with a clear, easy solution to get to the end point, and then it's done very simplistically at the same time, so it makes it seem like, wow, anyone could have done this. Like, this wasn't like this big heroic thing. It's like, wow, I could have done that, or Joe Schmo down the street could have done this. Like, it's a very beatable situation for these characters or spirits in the film. And then there's also a particular CGI creature in the film that just doesn't work for me. And that was one of the problems I had with Conjuring 2, is I was not a fan of I can't think of his name, it was the lanky kind of thing, because it was like, the Conjuring, these are like technically true stories. Like, this stuff supposedly have happened. With the Conjuring 2, when that character showed up, that took me out of the disbelief of being true story. And with this one, there's one particular spirit creature thing. You guys will know what I'm talking about when you see it, where I'm just like, well, yeah, that clearly didn't happen, or that clearly wasn't a real thing. And it took me out of the experience of it being a potential true story. But that's overall, I mean, that's what doesn't work. Overall, I actually had a blast watching this. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, it's slow to start, but once they actually start kicking in with the horror and the ghosts and stuff like that, it's a very enjoyable film for people who like these kinds of films. Yeah, is the jump scares a little annoying? Sure. Are there times where the girls are walking down a hallway or they're in a room, and instead of watching them, you're watching everything around them, kind of like how you guys look through all the stuff behind me? And you're not focusing on what you should be focusing on, which is their great performances. Yeah, that happens too. But overall, the three great performances from McKenna Grace, Madison Eisman, and Katie Seraph. I think they all do a fantastic job. It's a nice, tight-knit haunted house story. So for people who just want something that's very closed in, and not this widespread thing, this movie's going to work for you. And for anyone who's a fan of the Conjuring franchise, I think you guys are going to really enjoy this overall. Because, sorry, I just keep coughing. Overall, I really like this. I actually would probably put this as the second best Conjuring film, or Conjuring verse film, right behind Conjuring 1. It just did a little bit more for me that I actually enjoyed this over Conjuring 2. But yeah, like I said, I highly recommend it for people who like these kinds of films. If you're not a fan of these films and clearly don't see the film, it's not going to be your cup of tea. But for anyone who likes the Conjuring franchise or the Annabelle franchise, I don't think you'll have any problems with this film. I think you guys will have a lot of fun. But because of that, this movie didn't hit my top 10 of the year. While I still enjoyed it, it just wasn't there. So going into the top 10 movies of 2019 so far, it's going to stay the exact same as it was last week, which is Toy Story 4 at the number 1 spot, Avengers Endgame number 2, with Rocketman at number 3, Booksmart at 4, Us at 5, John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum at number 6, with Long Shot at 7, Child's Play at 8, Brightburn at 9, and Disney's Aladdin at number 10, with Shazam being just outside of the top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that way you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos on the channel. And also don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we got a review for the sorry, my phone's going off. The Beatles film Yesterday. And then also, because of these last two films with Annabelle Creations and Yesterday being the last two films of June, I'm going to be coming out with a top films of the first half of 2019, so be out on the lookout for that. And until next time, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.